Welcome to the Wings Event Center in Kalamazoo, Michigan. They call it the Zoo, home of the Kalamazoo Curling Club. The 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships. 16 teams competing in 2 pools of 8. The winner advancing to the 2023 World Mixed Doubles Championships in Gangneung, South Korea. Our feature game this afternoon will be Matt and Becca Hamilton taking on Aileen, Geving, and John Shuster. 4 teammates all around. On the call today, Tyler George, joined by Nate Perry. Nate, thanks for coming in and joining us in the booth.
Thanks, Tyler. Excited to be here. Watch some good curling still.
Game's already gotten going with the freeze. We may or may not bring you the standings and the other matchups as we go, but you have a draw already at the back of the button by Becca Hamilton. And a follow for Aileen Sorman, or formerly Sorman, still reflex to say that. That's Aileen Geving. You're on with the out-turn draw. Here are the standings for the event in Pool A. Persinger replies to pacing the field at 4-0. Geving Schuster close behind 3-1. Fountain Cott, Hamilton, Moores, Wheeler, and Rhymes Smith all packed in the middle at 2-2. Burr and Burr 1-3, and Rohrbacher Skebby 0-4. We have Matt Hamilton playing the intern draw. Nate, the mic's not on right now for us, for the players, so we get a little bit of a break from Matt and John until we have their commentary join us too.
Constant in the warm-up there, giving obviously teammates for years, as you know, Tyler, and talking to each other throughout those warm-ups, and DSEs down to Decide Hammer here, so it's been constant in our year. Hopefully we get those back up and running here soon.
Welcome to the club. So Pool B, we see TC and Dropkin at 4-0, Anderson, Stapera, Strauss, Casper 3-1. Anderson, Richardson, and Nickel 2-2. Bookout, Weeza, and Paul Perry 1-3. And Mulaney and Sinnott at 0-4. John Schuster throwing the intern draw. We've heard a lot from John already today. Had a feature game and a surprise appearance. Commentary. I think John wanted to make a grand entrance and not let me know that he was going to hop in. Real fun to catch up with the old teammate. Now throwing this intern draw, looks like it's coasting a little bit. It still has some backing, but bumps their own stone back.
Yeah, a little heavy on that intern side. It looks like it. On the ice this week, we've gotten caught a few times with that. Right at the start, the one side just a little bit faster than the other, it seems, and it looks like both teams caught by that a little bit here early on. So
Hamlin going back to this intern side. You do have backing with that yellow stone. Don't need to take that yellow rock out as of yet. Still a few rocks left in this end. Becca Hamlin trying to get this to turn over a little bit. It's kind of peaceful right now, Nate.
Yeah, it is.
We already had Matt chirping us before the game started. Right to the mat, perfectly placed. Well, Nate, have you played this sheet yet as of this week? Anything you can tell us about what you've seen?
Yeah, we did play this sheet once. I believe we were yellow over there, if I remember correctly. And the ice is so good here this week in general. Sean and his team do such a good job with it. Like I said, on every sheet we played, one side tends to start out just a little quicker, but curl seemed really consistent and nothing jumped out at us. John actually made a comment to me in practice. We had the same pre-event practice shift. He was trying to find a funny spot or a ridge somewhere in the ice, and he said he couldn't, and I tend to agree with him so far. So really good out there.
We've heard nothing but positive feedback about the ice throughout the week. That's a credit to Sean Olson and the crew. We'll never say it to his face and give him the satisfaction, of course, but great conditions throughout and clean conditions as well.
Yeah.
I asked John about any picks they may have had. We had a question in the YouTube chat and said that they had 2 in one game, and that's the extent of the entire week with 0 picks. Top.
Sure. Yeah, we haven't had any in our games. It's been great. And I asked Sean what he thought of the ice, and he is the typical ice maker. He was complaining about it, always searching for perfection, but it's about as close as I've seen in a number of years playing on it. It's great out there. So
The Hamiltons with the stone on the top of the button right now. Good position. Shuster and Geving have 2 yellow stones sitting second and third. They want. But I think they're probably, Nate, maybe playing just back to that rock in the back of the 4-foot with a freeze, best guess.
yeah, a lot of good options there. Just getting them in good spots. That's one thing we've learned too this week is that ice is so weight and release sensitive that just a foot different in weight or an inch different in line, you're playing 2 totally different shots. So I think whatever they do, looks like they are coming in just for this nice freeze, which is a decent spot for now. Not quite counting just yet, but just making sure you're communicating the whole time and committing to the whatever shot you're throwing. If they tried to do that back freeze you mentioned and just rubbed off their own or something, could be pretty disastrous. So
Shuster and Geving needing to move these stones around. Now we got Matt's voice in our head again. Not that it ever left for me, but now you get to live my life, Nate.
Yeah. John coming with the out turn at his own, it looks like.
Pretty good run back there from John with the out turn. Clear one of those stones. So Matt calling that intern freeze that we talked about earlier, Nate. Now playing to that rock in the back of the 4-foot. Little bit dangerous because if you only get to a corner of that stone, looks like that yellow red may be accessible.
Right, and that was, I think, Matt's first suggestion was to guard that side. Don't let John throw or I guess Aileen throw that again, but Becca didn't seem to like that too much, and Matt said, let's go ahead and try to sit 2. So
I think that John and Aileen are probably happy with this call from Matt and Becca because even if it's placed perfectly, there's probably a shot for at least 2.
Right. I tend to think I like Matt's call, her idea of that guard. I don't know what John has, maybe a freeze, and then they've still probably got a shot to the pin.
Now, line's pretty good here. Now needs to turn over a little bit.
Well made.
That's a good shot. Yeah, that ends up pretty good. That little run in that they play probably jams on the red in the back of the 4-foot on the opposite side. No draw really accessible on the intern side either. Be interesting to see where that red stone that's on the top of the button ends up spilling to when they play this. I'm assuming they're going to play this out turn yellow into the red.
It's always a little scary to play these ones with weight. You have to. The other team's sitting 2. It's your hammer shot. But if you're ever just off with these angles with all those rocks piled in there, it could go south in a hurry.
So it looks like they are playing the intern draw, just trying to give one most likely. Unless they can over curl and bump that rock back, try to spin in. Doesn't look like that's what they're attempting, just trying to hold them to 1.
She must be out there. Jonathan going for curl early.
John really trying to go to get it there. Doesn't look like it's going to get there on line anyways. So a steal of 2. A little frustration from John early there. And it will be a 2-0 lead for the Hamilton squad over Geving and Shuster after one end of play. Beginning of the second end of play, our feature game, draw 9. And number 5 for Pool A, 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships. Matt and Becca Hamilton stealing 2 in the first end on Aileen Geving and John Shuster. And with the start of the second end, again, we'll talk to you about Warm Room Hero. Is your curling club website clunky and unworkable? Are you tired of your club relying on social media because your website just does not work for your members? Finally, the curling management software your club has been waiting for is here. Check out Warm Room Hero at curling.club today. Tyler George joined by Nate Perry. Nate competing out here this week and kind enough to donate his time for this broadcast. Is this your broadcast debut, Nate?
This is, yeah. I've always kind of wanted to give it a go, and you've been doing such a good job with it. I figured I had to hop in and give it a try, especially after I know Vince joined you. I think that was opening night, and there's plenty of jokes about the lawyer speak. I'm staying in the Airbnb with him. We know what that's like. I'm sure he did a great job, but I figured I had to try to join him. So
yeah, Vince definitely went into the lawyer speak a few times. He did a really good job, and it's always fun to have friends in the booth too, so you can bring up inside stories. Of course, we talked about the upcoming wedding for those guys too. But Nate, talk a little bit about the season and what led you to the national championships, the qualifications, and how the team got here.
Yeah. Ann and I, we actually meant to play a little more than we did. This first year back from COVID was actually a little crazy. Everyone seemed to be hosting events much more frequently, and we both had our fourth.
We gotta go this way.
Team Working made it to Denver and just competed at women's nationals. My men's team, Team Connolly, didn't quite qualify for men's, but I played with those guys out in Vancouver a few times. So we doubles ended up kind of taking a little bit of an unintentional back seat. We played in the Colorado Cup at the gorgeous new Rock Creek facility in October and didn't have our best event. We tried to play in Charlotte over the New Year's and actually got waitlisted. Didn't realize that was such a popular event. We know now to sign up earlier, and so we went to the Madtown qualifier, just not thinking we had much of a chance, really. We were pretty far behind in points. Only our second event, played loose and won a few games and managed to get in on points. So played for a few years with Ann, so we're comfortable out there together. Just only the 2 events this year, but it was enough. So happy to be here.
And national is always a different experience, and the first one is something that you're feeling it out. You're winning as many games as you can, trying to learn as much as you can too. And once you've been there, then it's a lot easier to compete in the future. It's difficult not to treat it different from other events that you've played when you haven't had that experience too. But everybody has to get that first one in order to feel that way. I know my first men's nationals, it was kind of a little starry-eyed looking around at the other teams you're playing against and just getting your feet underneath. Here you see the other games in this draw number 9. Burr and Burr facing off against Fountain and Cott on Sheet B. Sheet C, our feature game, Hamilton's against Geving and Shuster. Sheet D, Ryman Smith taking on Rohrbacher and Skebby. And Sheet E, Moores and Wheeler versus Persinger and Plies, still undefeated. No real surprise there, Nate, with the Olympic team doing as well as they are. One of the front runners for this event.
See in the comment section here, the Madtown shout out I just gave. All the doubles events are some of the best runs in the country. The Colorado Cup, Madtown. I've heard nothing but good things about Charlotte. So glad doubles is growing and is popular.
And
And
throw
as
like
many
a
gracious
draw.
hosts as we do.
Just draw in there.
Play this
Sit there on the inside.
Yeah.
fun event.
That's the great thing about having the mic, Nate, is you can say hi to whoever you want, call out whoever you want, insult whoever you want if there's anybody you really like to snipe. But we have that power for the duration of this game. We can use it for good or evil. Once again, rocks piling up in the 4-foot. Pretty good setup for Geving and Shuster right now. That Yellowstone on top of the button in a very good position for scoring.
Short. It's got to go. Straight. Hard. Hard, hard, hard. Hard. Oh.
Out-turn draw from Matt Hamilton. Sliding right between those yellow stones to the button now. We'll take a couple shots to unlock those red. And Nate, we've talked a lot about placing stones in mixed doubles in a spot where it's going to take 2 shots to move it because of where it's frozen to or to unlock it. And when you're only throwing 5 shots per end, that's 40% of your throws. So now it looked like Shuster had that advantage with placing his stone on the top of the button, but Matt able to wiggle that thing through and sit behind it and get shot rock. Now that rock's going to be tough to move without throwing 2 stones at it.
Right, and without being able to hit as often in doubles too, rock placement's just so important. I mean, curling's a game of inches. Everyone knows that in general, and it's just amplified in doubles. We saw it in Schuster's game earlier. They were an inch or 2 away from winning that game, and Plies and Persinger made their last one to win. It's just an inch or 2 different placement, and then that shot by John right there, that tap to take the angle advantage right back from the Hamiltons.
Yeah, it's flipped back and forth in the last 3 shots. And now Shuster and Geving sitting shot rock and position above the tee line with that rock in the top of the 4-foot that they can use as well. So not much that Matt and Becca can do moving these around right now.
Yeah.
But still maybe a little bit of space to wiggle in there. Nothing they can really play with weight, though. Matt again playing that out-turn side, trying to freeze on that yellow stone on the side of the 4-foot. And if they can cut it close enough, play in off of it a little bit. This looks like it may have picked. Yeah, I kind of feel like that's an announcer jinx.
Yep. No.
That's the first one that we've seen that was severe enough to notice during a broadcast in this event. So I apologize to Matt and Becca for bringing that up and having that happen. Or we could just say Matt cranked it that hard.
Alan lost the handle and even went back a little bit the other way at the end there. You see that at the club level fairly often. Yeah, nothing here. And that's the first one I've seen as well.
Now, I'll really feel bad if there's 3 or 4 more of them in this game because we called it out. But hopefully just the one, and karma comes back their way later in the game. Curling gods are very fickle, Nate, as you know.
It's the good news for the Hamiltons is they are second shot in there, and it's not exactly going anywhere anytime soon.
Schuster's going to try to move these around, coming through the hole and fire that into their number 1 counter, I think, into the pocket. Going, that rock is locked in there now, too. And that red stone is in a terrible spot for the Hamiltons now that that stone is moved. It's dead in the hole between those 2 yellows, with 2 in front of it lined up to poke it right between. So this could be a big end for Aileen and John if the Hamiltons aren't able to somehow move things around and
we can't take them both.
protect that stone. I'm not real sure what they can do. They're looking at playing a freeze into the pocket, but even then, I think that
heavy if you knows
if they can get enough of that yellow stone, that yellow,
but
lose both
just the
reds.
freeze is ideal.
Saving grace for the Hamiltons right now, that center guard.
Right. Doubles is nerve-wracking in a good end. You have one pick, one missed shot, and all of a sudden they're staring down the gauntlet at
I was
4
like
or
middle of
5,
that
or
inside red
I
rock
think we
on the
saw a
boards
6-ender earlier today
for my
too.
draws, so we're kind of in that area.
A couple of 6s in this tournament we've seen now, and the same team that scored it was the one that gave it up, I believe. That's in separate games for everybody listening. I didn't lose my mind. Poorly worded.
Just turn curls.
Rebecca is trying to play this out-turn freeze, looks like.
Whoa, it's gonna have to curl.
Okay.
Whoa,
A little heavy.
it's hot. Gotta curl a mile.
Lots of weight. Really need this to turn over to get to that pocket. Nate, when we've seen proper weight thrown, usually it started its break right around the Columbia logo, if not before, and that one didn't turn over until after, so that's usually a bad sign.
Well, we found too each game getting a little better at it is throwing that better weight, finding that break point makes the brushing more effective too.
Oh,
It's
definitely.
just a little heavy and wide like that. Matt tried his best, but there wasn't a whole lot he could do to help it. So
Yeah, it's interesting ice that I think Sean, in talking to him before the event, specifically made it this way so that the break point is closer to back line and back 12 than it is to hack or board, which is what you'd see on normal curling ice. So what we mean by that is the point where the rock really changes the amount of curl, and the point that it curls at is usually closer to a soft hit weight than it is to a heavy draw. And so many misses that you see on this ice are back 12 back line weights that just run and never take that turn that you would expect for a soft shot. But that really plays into shot making for mixed doubles and rewards precise weights and shot placement for these rocks.
you beat me to it. It's so it rewards good throws and punishes bad ones.
Playing the angle run in here, Aileen Geving. Oh, so close to a 4 there if that spun up a little bit higher, but does end up being 2. So they get the deuce back. After 2 ends of play, Hamilton and Geving Shuster tied at 2. Third end of play here in our feature matchup, draw number 5 for Pool A, the 2023 Mixed Doubles National Championships. Matt and Becca Hamilton, Aileen Geving, John Shuster tied at 2 after 2 ends of play. Tyler George here with Nate Perry. Nate thought maybe we see a 4-ender there with that run in really close from Aileen Geving, but does just put up a 2 to tie this game up.
Just about, just like we said, just inches off from 4 there, but still a well-made shot to get 2 right back after giving up that steal in the first.
Geving playing the in-turn draw around the guard. Looks like with this weight, they're going to need a little bit of backing. Does push that rock to the back of the 8-foot, no problem there.
Okay, then.
Yeah. 15.
I added.
Looks tight.
It's a little tight.
Once again, we have Matt Hamilton's voice in our ears. And
It's close.
Curl it if you have to go.
our third man in the booth, essentially. Shuster as well, the 4th.
Curl it if you have
Nate, do you see either of these teams on tour this year? Get to play against them.
Yeah, it was. We mentioned Madtown earlier that it was fun to play
15.
or to see the Hamiltons there in
14-5.
their home environment with their club and league members, and everyone knows them. And it's one of the best things about curling is that everyone's friends with everybody. Everyone's willing to say hi. Someone made a comment to me before we came here. It's kind of odd. It's one of the only sports. I'm in an Airbnb with 2 of the teams on the ice right now. You're going to compete against each other in a national championship, and yet you're going home and sharing dinner and sitting in the hot tub together and having a lot of fun, even though you're competing.
Yeah, and that never changes at any level of the sport.
I like the run.
That is the best thing about curling, always will be.
On the nose.
That sense of camaraderie, whether you're playing domestically, the club, internationally, that friendship that you have, it's great to be able to get through tour with all the people that you're close with. But those are the teams that you want to beat the most too, are your friends. Right. And the to an even higher degree, this afternoon's featured game, we had the Anderson sisters playing against each other. That's a bragging rights game, basically, for the rest of your life.
Right. So let's throw this
I
one.
was
If
told
I take
by
the guard, I take the guard, but we're trying
mother
to come in
Aileen
tight.
that Taylor won their
Overcurls
matchup
like that.
earlier this year. And this was the game for Sarah to even things up. So 1-1. See if they get a rubber match in the playoffs later on in the week.
Keep an eye on the scoreboard as
Close.
that goes.
Yep.
Back 4. Back 4.
Oh, close.
Back 8.
Close. Close. Switch. Switch a little bit and go. All right.
Moves those stones around a little bit. Haven't seen a whole lot of rocks removed from play in this game yet, except for Shuster throwing that bomb earlier in the second end. So likely playing something to the top of the 4-foot now, unless John thinks he's going to hit and roll in. That does appear to be the plan. I've seen John, Nate, play a little more conservatively with how these houses are setting up in using the hit to take position a little bit more than other teams. I think that's just because John feels so comfortable with how he's throwing the rock right now that usually when you only have 2 players on the ice, you don't have a broom to throw to, just the one sweeper that you're trying to throw a shot that one sweeper has a little more control over with draws. But with that hit, again, not having the skip to call line, he trusts himself to call it. And that's when you're really in a rhythm. He feels that comfortable that he can throw any shot and doesn't need anybody else to help him with it.
Right, when he throws them as consistent as well as he does. We were just talking about how tricky the lines and weights and the combo can be on this surface. The hits, he knows where it's going to run, and he just made that one really well too. And it can kind of limit some of those. He gave up that steal of 2 in the first end. It can kind of limit some of the damage if he removes some a little earlier on and gets in some of those good positions.
I'd like to note that we are in our 9th broadcast of the week and having my first Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar of this competition. Way behind schedule from Denver, but maybe that layoff makes them taste a little bit better too, Nate. I had to make a run to the grocery store this afternoon. And we're in our element now. We're ready to go. I don't even drink soda at home, but something about having that for these events, something about having them in the commentary booth just feels right.
Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Good shot there from Matt to the top of the 4s. Would have liked to get it a little bit farther and outcount those 2 yellow stones, but a good position still to try to ensure at least getting on the board this end. Nate, what are you thinking here? What do you like for this shot?
Well, like we said, we just got to kind of find those angles and get in usable spots. I almost wonder if that intern draw in there to add another one in right now, if they were to leave it, it looks like there might be some kind of yellow double to leave red sitting into in there. So I don't, maybe tap one of their own back or come in the other side and stack another one in there to make it harder for the Hamiltons to just an extra rock to get rid of.
Shuster playing the outturn side again. Looks like maybe hack weight somewhere in there. Well, maybe not quite that much. Now it just looks like tap. Boy, it looked like he came out a lot more speed than that. That rock is really dying and turning over. It gets surprised Aileen too.
I can't quite believe, that barely got to the tee line by itself. It's up in a good spot, but
that looked like a ton more weight than that.
As good as this ice is for brushing, there have been a few times too where you stay off it will die for you. So I was agreeing with you. I thought it was heavy, but came right up to the nose of that other yellow.
And sit, shot. Here and here.
Okay.
It
Here
definitely
comes the weight
drags.
you were just asking for, seeing that they can remove a few of these yellows out of there.
I don't think there's any way I'm moving that 8. So if I slam it, I think it's like,
Do you think it's nose?
no, that touches the back.
Okay.
That being said, our shooter would stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought too. I think they're just close enough that may catch their own stone and then straight jam on the other yellow in the back. So Matt wants to catch it a hair high, maybe miss their own stone. Be very close. Definitely a little high. And does exactly that. Still catches the back of that red stone and straight jams. They are sitting second.
The double, let him drop for one,
Matt thinking that maybe a little bit thinner would have had a little reverse drag and pulled that rock away from jamming on their own. But as it stands, Shuster and Geving sitting 1.
So that's where you think I should be?
Probably just trying to guard that side, Nate. Don't know if there's a shot for 2 if they take the outturn side away.
Right, and this is one where the line's so much more important than the weight. You could almost come all the way down to that top 4 pocket created by those 2 rocks and still be fine. Just anywhere there all the way up to the hog line would be just fine. It's important to manage the
Just straight.
line here.
Yeah, and these are shots where teams tend to get a little lazy too. When they're throwing a guard, they just think guard there. But with how much curl there is, you have to be very specific. Even though you're only playing for line, you have to be very specific about where you want it because the amount of curl it'll take to get to each individual spot is significantly different.
And with how much this ice is curling, 5 feet or so on most draws, the rock's traveling so much further, just each extra foot down the house it goes with that extra arc and weight.
and then you're never pushing this back one out.
Yeah, this will be interesting. Matt was talking about trying to catch the outside of that red stone and spin it in. I don't think there's any way to get 2 regardless. So, I mean, if that's what they're playing, it still is just for 1. But the clean draw just to the button around those stones is also there with the intern. It's whichever you prefer. I think the clean draw is just a little bit easier shot, but
that's what this looks like, I think. So Matt's kind of right off. Must be heavy.
yeah, it hasn't started turning yet. Now starting to turn over. Doesn't look like it's going to stop in time, though. Line was perfect, just a little bit heavy. So it ends up being a steal of 1 for Geving and Shuster. Score. After 3 ends of play, Geving and Shuster leading Hamilton 3-2.
Twin Cities Orthopedics is ready to go with more doctors, specialty services, and convenient urgent care locations. Ready, set, TCO.
Fourth end of action, feature draw 5 for Pool A, draw 9 overall. 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships. Geving and Shuster stealing 1 point in the third to take a 3-2 lead over Matt and Becca Hamilton. Aileen Geving playing the out-turn come-around draw. Looking like that might need a little backing and over-curling. Settles in the back of the forefoot. Those are always fun comments to make to your team. I think you know this line better. Didn't say we.
Right.
I think you know this line better.
I've said that before. Having played the Hamiltons a few times, it's always fun to see the different dynamics and doubles teams, especially since both players have such an input. And the Hamiltons being siblings, there's things you can say to your sibling you can't exactly say to everybody, and so it's always entertaining to listen to them and to play against them.
Oh, I agreed completely. I've told people numerous times that my favorite teammate was my sister because she could call me out when I was being a brat. You know, brat's not the word I would use normally, but you get the idea. And I know she's right, so I always would listen. For those that are watching and chiming in on the YouTube chat, we do have that screen up. So if anybody has any questions or comments or anything like that for Nate or for myself, please feel free to fire away.
That he's bouncing. Yeah, I mean, he's got to get to nose.
Shuster now playing the in-turn draw after a freeze is well made by Becca Hamilton. So Matt was right. She did know that line well.
It's curling. Man, that curled hard.
Yeah, that one, Matt beat me to the punch. That really took a jump on that line. It was all of back eight's weight. Ends up just bumping and settling in the top of the button.
Yeah.
You want to tap it all or no?
I'd love to tap it.
Scores around the horn on other sheets right now, too. Sheet B, Burr and Burr with a 2 in the third end, now leading Fountain and Cott 3-1. Sheet D, Ryman Smith after a single in the third end for Rohrbacher and Skebby, now leading 2-1. And on sheet E, after a steal of 3 in the third end, Chris Plies and Vicky Persinger leading Claire Moores and Lance Wheeler 4-1. Looking to stay undefeated.
Hard! Hard!
Format too, and to stay ahead.
Go, Becca, go all the way to it.
With that body
all the way to it.
Down to the playoffs.
All the way to
it. Seed.
Yeah, that is a team that when they get rolling, they're extremely
it
difficult to beat. Their success, obviously, in the last few years speaks to that.
I know, I was just
watching them. I remember watching them.
I didn't think we were going to
Olympic qualification event prior to this last Olympics. They were scary. They weren't missing anything, and Chris was calling and making shots I didn't even think were there pretty routinely.
No, it ended up being.
Yeah, that was a tournament for those that watched that really made everybody feel like we had a front runner to get on the podium at the Olympics. And I know that Chris and Vicky would be the first to tell you they wish that they had a better result out there, but all indications going in were that they were peaking at the right time, and I believe they feel they have unfinished business. the 2026 games if they can get back there. As we say that, Fly's throwing the high hard one at a center guard with an out turn, his favorite on those up weight shots.
We either
Opens
do
things
this.
up over there too. Matt and Becca eyeing up this setup. We'll see what Matt has to say, and Becca will probably catch on his mic as well.
Or just draw straight.
I know that noise from Matt that
horn looks
means he
okay.
doesn't agree or doesn't see it.
We probably got to hit and roll to take their angle. You know what I mean? Because if we just draw there, this angle is always good for them. I think we got to hit and roll.
So hit and roll appears to be the call.
Like board?
Okay? If we can
That's a
tap their
board
yellow,
weight.
that's really good for us. Because it would put us at 1-2, but
If you want us to tap
Yeah,
that yellow, it
question
needs
in
more
the
weight.
chat here, how many teams have a shot at winning with the
Okay,
current
let's throw
standings? I
from.
don't think anyone's been mathematically eliminated yet, with 3 teams from each pool qualifying.
Yeah, that's not a question I'd want to answer until the final draw. With mixed doubles, anybody has a realistic chance at all times. And, you know, when we get asked to handicap fields, that just hits on the nose, and Matt a little frustrated.
I believe in the opening you outlined, I think there's 4 teams out on the ice right now that are tied at 2-2. And every game's important. Everyone will be moving up and down game by game.
We got a little of Schuster's mic now too. There we
No,
go.
like board, at least we get some curl.
Our job just got a lot easier, Nate.
A little more controllable.
Don't change a thing, Mr. Benton. We got him now.
Good to see Aileen out there too. I know she
There's
wasn't
on the
able to
tap.
go to women's nationals like I know she was working hard and hoping to. So good to see her out. She said she's feeling good. So and obviously playing well.
Yeah, back to that question about the realistic shots. Just the, even pre-tournament picking teams that you think will have the best chance. I mean, when I was asked, I gave the honest answer that there's 8. Usually halfway through the week, even the 8 teams towards the top still have a very good chance, and anybody in the field can make a run with this format. But I picked. I won't say who I picked, but I picked the team that I thought had the player that was throwing the rock the best going into the tournament, but with zero confidence, because really anybody can come through these fields.
I think it needs a lot.
As much as the whole field and men's and women's has been getting stronger and
I've
stronger.
seen it
You
with,
still
like,
have your couple favorites. You can kind of
normal.
tell halfway through the week who's going to be there at the end, but doubles without these high scores and all these rocks in the forefoot, and no one's out of it. And you can catch fire or lightning in the bottle at any
I
time.
don't think there's anything bad too tight.
Anybody can beat
so
anybody
I'm
out
just gonna
there.
play it kind of tight.
Yeah, the men's and women's, I was proud to say I picked all 4 finalists and both winners correctly, but I wouldn't even try with doubles, honestly. Matt with a pretty good look at the in-off here with this yellow stone in the top of the forefoot and this overhead on the right side. If they can squeeze that other yellow between those two, they have a really good setup.
great job, Matt.
That's pretty well done. Does move some of those reds around too, but Schuster's eyeballing if
That's the best you could do.
they can somehow move that stone out. Looking at that in-off, we'll listen into John.
Yeah, I think that gives them more space.
Oh, sure. When we say we're going to listen in, then he stops
Right.
talking. That's about the last thing I expected to happen.
Yeah, I really need a short one here.
I mean, getting out of this with one wouldn't be the end of the world after that.
Yeah.
So,
I believe he's just trying to draw in there. I don't know, on it or next to it. Kind of take away the scoring area a little
No,
bit
you're
from
not
the
getting
handle
in.
pins.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, if you can get it in tight enough, I was thinking
off the 5?
heel off
John
the
had
5.
nothing but
Biggest
good things to
chance
say about
to catch a 7 first.
Aileen as a things about her as a person, but they have a very good rapport between the two of them. Seems to work pretty seamlessly. Both being in the Duluth area, getting to play together a lot helps too.
Guys? It's running.
Looks like Corey has a follow-up question on our standings discussion there, what the playoff format is. The top 3 from each pool move on. Those 1 seeds each get a bye, and then 2 and 3 play cross-pool playoff games in the bracket.
A nice shot by Aileen. Great position. It's going to make 2 very difficult for
If I hit this,
Matt and Becca.
does this come that
Doesn't
way?
go anywhere.
Not
honestly.
sure if they can
You're probably more likely if
nose
you
that
miss it, it
stone
does
and get it
squeak up
squirt
this does sit
through and
here.
push the
Throws
other
some
yellow.
ass.
So nothing?
That's about the
Whatever.
only possible option, but
I'm wondering
yeah,
if
that's
you could hit
so
this.
well placed by Aileen. Great shot.
This doesn't go anywhere though. It's just 1.
Melissa in the chat. It's not a bad question in the least bit. It's just an honest answer.
But also, as an athlete myself, sitting at 1 and 3, getting better each game,
Yeah.
I don't want to call my week over just yet. There's plenty of games left and time to make some noise. So.
Nate, I would be the last one to say that any team is out if they're not mathematically out.
Right.
Looking back as far as 2018,
No kidding.
Becca throws this one away wisely. Not really much they could do to help themselves there. They're going to have to take that point again. Just that shot by Geving. So after 4 ends of play, it will be 3-3, and with the
Look how
4th end
gently you
break,
push those into the
it is
boards.
brought to you by Warm Room Hero, the intuitive curling
So I
club
like how gently
software
you
that
push them
takes the
into the
stress
boards.
out of schedules, registrations, and more. Warm Room Hero, a platform built for curlers by curlers. Check out Warm Room Hero at curling.club today. Tie game at the break, 3-3.
I don't know if it has been. I've been holding it a little bit. Yeah.
Sorry. The shot I was looking at, I think, was way too much risk.
Yeah.
Because we're sitting 1 and we give them a point, we would really hate ourselves.
Yeah, no, that was fine.
Let's say you're in high school and there's a sport you like, but sometimes you think, you know, it might be cool to try a new sport.
Should end up with a corner guard on the other side of the sheet.
Twin Cities Orthopedics is ready to go with more doctors, specialty services, and convenient urgent care locations. Ready, set, TCO.
Still here at the break in our feature broadcast, taking a look at the scores around the other sheets. Burr and Burr, Fountain and Cott tied at 3 after 4 ends now, after a 2 from Fountain and Cott. Sheet D, Ryman Smith take 2 in the 4th end. Now lead Rohrbacher and Skebby 4-1. And sheet E, a 3 by Moores and Wheeler. Ties that game up 4-4 at the break. Nate, we see a ball game over there on sheet E. Lance and Claire maybe rounding into form and at the very least giving our undefeated Olympic reps a run for their money.
And they'll be the first ones to tell you, maybe more specifically their coach Quinton, that they did not start this week the way they wanted to their first couple games, but they have been playing much better. I think they scored in 7 out of the 8 ends earlier against Rhyme Smith. Maybe it was 6 out of 8. They stole, I think, 5 singles in a row at one point in that game.
That's a really frustrating thing to happen. So, I mean, giving up a steal or an end of 3 or 4, at least you feel like, okay, one bad end, we can come back. But when they keep chipping away with those singles and you just can't seem to get over the hump, that's way more frustrating than that single end with a lot of time to recover from it.
Surprised to see Schuster's coming out of the break with his power play here.
Now, this is the earliest power play that we've seen so far in any of the feature games. See if Fat Rock stops.
I didn't quite catch what they were saying. Matt, I think, was surprised too and was asking John about it. And I believe John's comment was along the lines of they had a game earlier this week. I guess they tried to save it and either didn't get to use it or had to use it later than they meant to in the 7th or 8th end.
Good wait for the shot.
So pretty good shot there by Becca Hamilton. John, not disappointed with where it ended up, is saying, and these are a little of the mind games between teammates too, and saying it's a pretty good rock to freeze to.
And it is.
I guarantee you that a lot of these things that it appears that they're saying to their teammates are said for the benefit of the opponent. This one really coasting.
Here's the spot I know you mentioned a lot. Men's and women's nationals in Denver, that inside out, quicker, especially right out of the break with that mock going down just before.
Yeah, it's one of the things that the teams that have played on these national ice surfaces have an advantage with is, you know, Sean Olesen learned from Dave Stavateg, who did our nationals ice for years and years, and there are certain characteristics of their ice that are the same every time. So when my sister was coaching Delaney Strauss's squad at the university games, Dave Stavateg actually came out of retirement to do the ice up there. So she asked me, okay, give me the fill-in on Dave's ice, and I gave her a 3-paragraph text about everything to expect. I feel like everything pretty much went as expected, but even with the amount of curl changing a little bit and the break point a little bit for this ice, those things like the center line being considerably faster, taking the same broom for guards as you do for draws to the fours, because the guards curl quite a bit more than any other shot. So instead of cutting the broom down because it's traveling less distance,
I guess I could have taken you to curl it because I was never hitting that out.
Now, those types of things really don't change very much every year for their ice that we see.
Yeah, because of the rotation now, like
how
chaps
good
off
and
it
consistent
rather
they
than
are
function.
at what they do.
I mean, it's 1-2. There's no double.
There is Sean Olesen walking by right in front of us, always busy.
Yep.
Thought I saw him smile yesterday once. Could have been gas though too.
Fun to be a part of that process too. He helps us out in Fargo every year with our ice install and just getting to help out and see those guys at work doing what they do best is fun to be a part of.
That's my line.
There's the teammate banter. John rolls to a spot he's not real pleased with because it sets up a pocket, but
I'm going to just
no
kind
double
of try
there.
and crotch him.
Matt says,
Honestly,
"That's
if we
my
hit this
line."
one first, we can spin up a little bit.
There's not a man in the world that would have told you that was good.
What's your
Out.
out? Okay.
Played it for a few years now. This power play, the strategy seems to be the thing that's still evolving, and everyone's playing just a little different. And some teams are just trying some new things. Every event you go to, it feels like you can't quite figure out what seems to work best.
Hard.
Yeah, that's the interesting part about curling as a whole, regardless of the format you play, is Matt does indeed prove that there's a double there, John. That when these new formats come in or new rule changes come in, things like that, teams are learning on the fly how to play those. So when 5-rock rule was instituted and started in the slams before it went to the rest of the formats, then we were constantly experimenting with what worked best, and some of it was just standard play where there's certain things that almost all teams do now, but some of it is what works best for our team based on this format. And with doubles, it's still a relatively infantile game compared to standard men's and women's curling, because maybe what has it been, 15 years it's been around, somewhere in there. So think about that compared to 400 plus for the rest of the games. Of course, we didn't know for 400 years that sweeping with the curl made the rock curl too. So
watching some of those old videos are fun. To your point, just doing what works best for your team. Talking with Vince and Harley, I mentioned we're staying with it. In a close game, we like to throw that tick on that corner guard like Becca made really good on her first one here. Vince and Harley said that's not their game. They like to draw. They want to put one top 4 or throw a center guard. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just what works best.
Might as well go across there because there's no
you're going to make.
I mean, don't go for it.
No, I mean, here's the thing.
Close
hitting it on the inside, it always gives us a chance
from overhead.
I kind of like, I guess, the same turn.
It was something they told us in the pre-event meeting too, is these
just
every national event you go to, the houses are a little bit off, a 1/4 inch here, an 1/8 inch there. These ones are a little more off than most they had mentioned. So we've seen a lot of measurements, and these overhead cameras not being quite centered. It could come down to that umpire swinging the stick at the end.
Yep.
That makes me feel even better about being 3-0 on measurement calls this week. Matt playing that
good enough
hit with up weight, just picks that stone out. Hoping to maybe stick on the other back one with a bonus.
Chicken.
But
I'm a chicken.
Necessary.
Gobble, gobble.
So Shuster and Geving
I'm a thunder
trying to
chicken.
find a freeze that could give them what in men's or women's would be a skip's deuce. But for this, it's just the last 2 shots.
I missed the back of my mind. Yeah, I could have hit it thicker.
Shuster playing the in-turn freeze, rock in the back of the 12-foot.
Oh yeah, that gives them a setup for 2. You're right.
This one taking a pretty hard turn now.
I mean, he's bouncing.
And again, a little
I was taking like here, just outside.
misread on the weights again on that inside out, and it's so hard to believe, Nate.
Yeah.
See a rock curling that much, but
can
it's
nose
not
it.
losing that much speed either. It's still gliding. And I think Aileen even felt sweeping that stone that they were going to be pretty close to the freeze, and it just never really slowed down. It's like it's going down a slope.
Go here low.
I've always been impressed with John in the 4-person game and this one, how honest he is with himself, and that's so important with just the two, just some of the comments I heard him make as that rock was going down the sheet about the line and the way. There's no broom or skip to tell you were wide or heavy or however you missed it. You've got to relay that to your teammate yourself when you're the one throwing the rock. It takes a lot of practice and
Very good, Beck. Thanks,
putting some of that ego aside too, to know that, hey, I was heavy, I was wide, whatever the case may be. You got to relay that to your teammates so they're not caught out on an island.
Becca's hit does roll out, but playing it on the safe side, a little bit firm with the weight to make sure that it didn't over curl. Never going to be a great steal opportunity with nothing else in play, so would have liked to nose, but never getting anywhere near it and taking chances. So Geving now will be drawing against 2. Just needs to essentially get full 12-foot, touch 8s. Final stone of this 5th end, Aileen Geving. In-turn draw. John working this one pretty hard, as I think it's curling a little early, but doesn't look like it's going to be a problem. That's well thrown by Aileen for the single, so the power play only results in one, but they do hang the point. Geving and Shuster leading Hamilton 4-3 after 5 ends of play.
Back up. Back up.
The everyday person may not aspire to be a professional athlete or an Olympic athlete. You may just want to be the best person you can be. You just may want to sleep better. You may want to feel better. Thorne has many products that can support all of those things. So it's not just about performing or running faster or jumping higher. It's those little things that go into having a higher quality of life.
Sixth end of play. Feature matchup in the 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships. Geving and Shuster leading the Hamiltons 4-3. On to the sixth, and at the start of the sixth end, thanks to our friends at Floor Curl, USA Curling member clubs are entitled to a 20% discount on any Floor Curl inflatable rink set. These rinks only take a minute to inflate or deflate, are the perfect way to promote your club at summer festivals, events, or anywhere you have a flat surface. No ice required. Visit usacurling.floorcurl.com. Use the promo code FCInflatable20, valid until March 12th. That's usacurling.floorcurl.com, promo code FCInflatable20. Thanks again to Rock Solid Productions, Ryan and Steph LeDrew, Chad McMullen for being a sponsor for the event. Strongly encourage anybody to pick up one of those inflatable sets or the full sets with the synthetic surface wheels on the bottom of the stones. A lot of fun to use at your parties, events, corporate events, anything like that. Second power play of the game. Now the Hamiltons trying to make a little better use of this than Geving and Shuster did. Put up a multiple point end. Just throwing this draw to the open side, trying to sit two. Gliding a little bit, but should nestle into the back of the house. It's like playing a completely different game, Nate, with the power play as opposed to the standard mixed doubles end.
And it's so difficult, too, like we said, on that inside-out line, especially in four-person, you've got four people throwing all kinds of different eyes and brooms on the ice. But in doubles, here we are in the sixth end, and that's probably the first time, maybe all week, someone's thrown that exact line Becca did inside-out that way on this sheet. It's a little bit of a guess, and it does certainly make things interesting and a little more difficult than when that center guard and back four rock go up. You're just going around them all day long, every day until end of an important close game like this, and you've got to completely switch things up.
So not able to hit as of yet. So freeze being played, and once again, same type of misses we've seen on these inside-out shots. If you want to count it, a week and a half from Denver all the way through here in Kalamazoo. That is the miss that you see, that center line draw that just so tough to believe that it runs that fast. And yeah, John, well aware of the struggles that they're having on that inside-out line. He'd be the first to tell you that he's not making any excuses. He's well aware of how that runs. So Matt Hamilton throwing the in-turn draw, trying to get around the corner guard now. And Nate, with the way these rocks are set up, there is space between the guard and the rock for if you're coming around to play the hit, but not enough to play the double. So, boy, this one turning over and going to be on the guard.
Nothing.
Turn this end around a lot.
That's all these heavy misses.
Well, that's
went ahead and missed the other way.
You just started a bit.
Still
No, I just
mostly
didn't take it
guarded.
It's not a
Under
bad
the
result
corner.
pushing the yellow and got ticked over, and he just ticked it back to the original spot to cover up his own shot.
I should dig the one that they're rocking over there now. Because if I dig it and leave the center guard, like if I go around the center and they make the run, they're now line 3 and we're still freezing against a million. We're playing a double against giving up. I think I just go over there and try to dig this thing back.
Ron just walked through it for us. The draw around the center looks great until you look at the scoreboard and realize you're up one. And if you don't quite make it, or Matt and Becca being two of the best hitters in the world make that run back, all of a sudden you're looking at something pretty dangerous.
Yeah, and that's what happens at this level too, that you give your opponents that much credit that you expect them to make shots like that straight run, and you play shots that don't give them the opportunity to. Great sweep by Geving there to get around that. Hits it so thick it doesn't even roll under the center. So in that circumstance, they would have liked to be underneath because they get the hit and roll instead of just the clean draw. Right. So good throw by John, a really good sweep by Aileen.
I won't generally yell at you like you can get it by if you can't, to be honest. Like, if we touch it, it's going to be the backside. Or I'll let you know.
John referring to the save it. Question from Neptune V32. What do we think of a potential future rule change where during the power play, if you tick on your first shot, your shooter must stay in play, otherwise you reset the shot? I could see something like that happening. I don't think it's something that you'll see anytime soon, but we have also talked about in our rules
Just started curling, so
or competition rules commission meetings that we talked about not being able to tick the same way you have no tick for the center guards in men's and women's play, that there'd be a line on the corner for power plays where you can't tick, so that that shot that they're getting so good at pushing it into the rings wouldn't even be an option. Not sure how the players would take to that or not. It wasn't something that we had a real strong feeling for in those meetings, but Nate, is that something you think would help the game, hurt it?
My first reaction to that doesn't sound like something I'd love, but I also was fairly adamantly against the no-tick rule in the four-person game until this year when they implemented it and playing with it. I was a much bigger fan than I thought I would be, especially I play lead on my men's team. It makes the precision on the lead shots much more important, hitting that center line, and any sort of deficit, you've still got a chance. You put one on the center line, you don't necessarily even have to do those double centers so often anymore, and really kind of force the issue. So it after a negative reaction to begin with, it really ended up being, I think, a good thing. So I don't know if it's quite as big of an issue in four-person. I don't think the ticks taking away as much and making those percentages as I'd have to look with that as lopsided as that four-person game with the defensive tick, but game is ever changing.
Yeah, I think the one thing that keeps that rule change from happening at this point is that you still can't take the rock out of play.
Right.
So if you're bumping into the rings, then even though that corner isn't up there, there still are two stones in play.
I mean, it takes the.
So even if your shooter does roll
It's
off,
on the edge.
Plus in doubles, if you're throwing that corner tick, it's your own stone. It is not the other team's. Theirs is already in the rings, and so you're trying to put your stone in a good place, whether it be to the center line or in the rings, and ideally shot or wherever you push it to.
You could take probably. You could throw hack if you want. I mean,
so the Hamilton's sitting 2, but there is a little space between the guard and rocking the top 8 to get the roll underneath. So very important shot now for Geving. If they can get this roll under, makes that 2 very difficult. Her final stone of this 6th end. Taking a turn. Aileen telling John, really need to hold this. Gets by and will get that roll to what a great shot.
Perfect.
Completely buried underneath.
We want to score 1, right?
Can't do it better than that.
Giving up a steal is terrible, so I think we have to draw.
Aileen's
Unless
made a
you really
couple
want
of
to draw.
dandies in this game.
I'm fine with drawing if you want. But we're drawing on the side. We have not drawn to in a while.
So
either.
It's your
difficult
pick,
decision now for
I'm
the
cool with either.
Hamiltons.
Well, no.
The run back is for 2. Even if you lose the raised rock,
I mean, if
still
you
get
miss the
1
draw, it's the
point.
same thing. You know what I mean? It's
But
just
if
one
you
of
don't
those you
make the
got to
draw,
make it.
as Matt's saying, then it's the same result of a steal. So maybe might as well play the 1 for 2 as opposed to the draw for 1. Not that the
Go for the run.
run back is as simple a shot as the draw,
I
but
like the out
I
personally.
don't think there's a ton of difference
just threw
between the
'em.
difficulty of the 2. I think the risk reward is worth playing the run personally. Nate, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Especially in doubles, you'd love to score 1 and keep hammering the evens, but it's not quite as big of a deal as it is in the 4-person to keep hammering those even ends and that scoreboard even.
They are playing that run. Matt trying to hold this. Looks like it's very close. And that is drilled.
Spot on.
Perfectly done by Becca. Great execution on those last 2 from Aileen and from Becca Hamilton. So
Great weight choice from Becca there too. Didn't have to
It
blast
sounded
it.
like you wanted to
yeah,
throw it. It
controlled the
sounded
weight.
like-
Really well done. So that will be 2
Hey, mine didn't crow at all. So
for
that's
Matt
why I
and
was like,
Becca.
you like the run.
They lead
I love
John and Aileen 5-4 after 6 ends of play.
it. Rock and roll.
Just because you're not a professional athlete doesn't mean that you should accept less. The beauty about what Thorn does is our product quality is the same whether they're in the athletic line or whether they're just for the everyday person. Thorn has kept true to never compromising on quality, never compromising on efficacy, never compromising on safety for not only athletes but for everyone who would use their products.
Seventh end to play. Our feature matchup, the 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships. Draw number 5 for Pool A. Draw 9 overall. Hamilton leading Geving and Shuster 5-4 in this 7th. Both power plays now used. Start of the 7th end means, one more time, to tell you about Warm Room Hero. It's more than just software. It's run by curlers dedicated to building long-term relationships with your club. Warm Room Hero provides continuous support to ensure your website exceeds your members' expectations. Check out Warm Room Hero today at curling.club for special event pricing. First stone on the back of the button, Rebecca Hamilton. Aileen Geving trying to follow that down, make the freeze if possible. Hearing John Shuster say that rock is all there, still gliding. Could go right by. 2 rocks behind that stone too. Nate, seems like throughout the week, again, shorter games, but the ice has held up pretty well from the start of the game to the finish. Haven't really seen get fudgy or anything or picks late in the game either.
Yeah, absolutely. It holds up great. That is that
Feels
fewer
there.
rocks and less sweeping. The only thing we've
Your
noticed
judge.
is
Another
occasionally
curl.
it gets just a foot or 2 slower, especially if the game's around you finish early once some of those bodies leave.
Yep.
It seems to
Whoa.
just catch
Whoa.
a little
Whoa.
bit more in those 7th and 8th ends. It appears to be running just as good for these guys here in this game, but that's other than just a foot or 2 a weight difference, it's still, like we said, a gorgeous surface out there.
Try to throw the same way that you did just had. It was not that close second.
So sitting 2 now for Matt and Becca Hamilton. 1 point lead without hammer. Let's see what Shuster elects to play here. Around with the out turn, maybe trying to bump that rock on the button and move it back a little bit.
Curl side, other side already. Straight.
I was a little surprised they switched on that one. Looked like they had all the curl they needed. It does get by.
And I think that's a good example. I think they both thought that was heavier than it ended up being until about halfway down.
Yeah, maybe
turn,
thinking
same
that
everything.
they are losing a little bit of speed on this draw to the button path. John thought he threw that pretty hard. Seeing the clocks now. 4 minutes, 19 seconds left for the Hamiltons.
Yeah, I like the
5:57 for Schuster and Geving. Never a surprise to see John with plenty of
Short's
time
okay, just
later
no
in the
bouncing.
game.
It's not bouncing.
Easy. Line's fine.
Still plenty of time for both to finish this game out.
Close. Yep, get it there.
Hamilton trying to lock
there now.
this out-turn freeze on that top yellow stone.
Good judge back.
Really well done. We've mentioned on almost every broadcast too, Nate, that freezes are extremely difficult to make to a point where they're really locked on because the striking bands are so live on these stones, so barely tapping the stone.
Lively rocks combined with the great ice. Just throwing those tick shots we were talking about in the power play in the pre-event practice, I couldn't believe how far some of those rocks were traveling. We had to tone down the weight on a few of those to keep them in play and where we wanted to be. And freezes are kind of the same principle.
Switching to the intern side now for Schuster, playing a little soft weight hit, trying to just catch their own stone, I believe. Getting really close to this guard. Looks like it's going to wreck. Interesting angles now. Matt and Becca seem to know what they want to do already.
Yellow is pretty hard pressed to score as it sits right about now.
Just so you know.
I kind of want to just be here,
Where? Okay.
right?
Yeah, this is a situation with the 1-point lead in the 7th that in the back of your mind, even though you're thinking a steal would be nice, forced to a point, you still have hammer in the last end, and stealing again with mixed doubles is a little bit easier than in men's and women's, so not the same strategy, but you're not going to be terribly disappointed with giving up 1 point here.
Hard.
3.
Go.
And indeed they are, just playing the
Whoa.
tight guard,
Whoa.
looks
Whoa.
like. Right to the top of the 12-foot. I think John's going to see how many of these he can move.
To the yellow off. This one into the yellow. If I happen to catch the red, it's fine too. Like the red double's fine, but it's better to miss it and hit yellow.
So you hear from John, they're playing that red stone in the top of the 12-foot in. Perfect world, they'd miss that red one in the top of the 4-foot and just clip their own yellow into the red, but they're just fine with making that double on those two reds as well.
I'm gonna throw.
So yeah, only throwing firm. Here you hear from John. He set that one back a little bit, looked like, and the sound effect from John means I think he agrees. As much curl as we're getting, Nate, with the soft weight shots. Still very close to, with Firm and Peel, just putting the broom where you want to hit it. I know when Schuster was in the booth with me earlier, he said it's really about maybe an inch off of where you want to hit it if you're throwing Peel for where you put the broom.
It's all release sensitive, like you said. He kind of backed that one out. Just that inch. It will curl an inch. It's not falling by any means, but it is rewarding the good throw with the right broom for sure.
Or you kill that yellow, but you might. Honestly, I think that drags the back one. I don't know.
Sheet E, Moores and Wheeler, Persinger, Plies tied at 5. Playing the 7th end.
Okay, I see it.
Sheet B, Burr and Burr leading 5-4 with hammer in the 7th on Fountain and Cott. Ryan Smith, Rohrbacher, Skebby now tied at 4 after a 2 and then a steal of 1 by Vince and Harley.
You know where it's got to go, though.
3.
Some tight matchups all the way across the board in this one. No game with bigger than a single point deficit.
How close
There
is
you
it?
see all those scores
just a
that we
3.
mentioned. That game on sheet D is tied 4-4 now, and
It's not bad, Beck.
nice guard over curls a little bit
Not bad.
from
They can. I think they can get shots.
Becca, so
Yeah, if you hit there, you just plant that
Aileen
yellow
will have a
that's
look
stuck,
at
but
that
You're sitting too, most likely.
little chisel on the yellow stone. Try to score a point. Never any more than one available here. Basically hit whatever you can see. You don't have to hit all of what you can see, but contact is probably good enough to score. As long as you don't fire it and shoot it straight sideways.
Right. It's pretty low risk, too. If you ever crash on anything, you're only ever giving up the one.
I think if you throw just that nice board is perfect.
Edge of 4?
Yeah, I think if you throw positive, that should be good.
I think John settled on board weight by the end there.
Final stone of the 7th end. Aileen Geving playing board weight, just trying to chip that yellow stone in for one. Maybe jump this one a little bit. Now they need it to curl. Oh, Aileen, yeah, just a little bruise on that early sweep. Actually threw it pretty good, and that is the danger with that sweep, is getting it early is when you can have the most effect. So after 7 ends of play and that steal of 1 from the Hamlins, they lead 6-4 over Geving and Shuster.
The everyday person may not aspire to be a professional athlete or an Olympic athlete. You may just want to be the best person you can be. You just may want to sleep better. You may want to feel better. Thorne has many products that can support all of those things. So it's not just about performing or running faster or jumping higher. It's those little things that go into having a higher quality of life.
On to the 8th end in our feature game. Hamilton leading Geving and Shuster 6-4. Geving and Shuster with hammer in the final end. Tyler George here with Nate Perry. And Nate, I don't know if you noticed during the break, I had a little bit of a yawn, dragging a little bit. Probably would have helped if I had a little Tim Hortons this morning on the way in, but maybe save that for tomorrow, because you can wake up to freshness with Tim's 2 for $6 breakfast sandwiches featuring fresh cracked eggs. You might pair it with the new vanilla flavored cream cold brew with chocolate cold foam, or a vanilla flavored latte with chocolate syrup. Thank you to our local sponsor, Tim Hortons, located at 5709 West Nidge Avenue near I-94 in Portage. That's 5709 West Nidge Avenue near I-94 here in Portage. I can't get over how weird it is to do Tim Hortons ads. I feel like I'm working for TSN.
I was just thinking the same thing, and I'm looking out for the cups out there that take up about the entire free guard zone.
How many times have you not noticed a guard in those Tim Hortons cups when they're red? We've seen players trip over them during
once a game, it
competition.
feels like.
Well played first draw, and this ends up being a little heavy there from Geving and pushing that rock to the back of the forefoot.
Right down to it or go?
I think top button's the play.
I think I like top button too. Which way do you see?
Matt looking to throw this top button now. A little under 3 minutes for the Hamilton squad. Still plenty of time with the timeout in tow for both teams too.
I really like the weight.
Okay, I like
3:42 remaining for Geving and Shuster.
top button though. That's fine. Line's okay. Wait for it.
Wait's there, Matt. It's going
Matt
back
looking
to it.
to get this to
Leave
stop
it then.
above the tee line, but
Leave
hasn't
it.
taken a turn as of yet.
Back 4.
Just leave it.
Going all the way back to those yellow stones.
Just a hair of an ad at the end.
No.
No? Just faster. Okay. At 4:04. 14:05.
High side isn't terrible.
Right.
Like if I bump it loose
Don't
like
know if
that,
we'll put the jinx on this or not, Nate. But haven't had an extra end game in any feature draws as of yet.
Right.
so I think I actually
I'm not sure I've seen one in any of the games.
was just
Period.
thinking the same thing. I don't know
Maybe
that
our-
I've seen one just yet.
And maybe our stats people over here can clarify that. If there has been an extra end game in this competition, it'd be pretty remarkable.
It's very, yeah, and
If there
doubles, you
hasn't.
tend to see them more often than not, it feels like.
18.
John Schuster playing the outturn freeze, I believe is what they called.
8.
hard line. Okay, line side now.
8.
It's going to be tricky for John needing his 2 here with all that stuff in the back of the forefoot.
Hard. Hard to it.
And with that line a little bit tighter, it turns over a little bit
Hard to
earlier.
it.
That does go all the way back to that pocket. That's well done by John, well swept by Aileen.
Taking a ice. Sorry.
GE Persinger implies with a steal of one
My first inkling on where to
in
put
the
it.
7th end on the power play for their opponents. Claire Moores and Lance Wheeler. So 6-5 over there on E now, going to the final end, or what could be the final end. What has been the final end, we believe, in every game so far. Sheet D, we see a power play result in 5 for
401.
Kim Rhyme and Jason Smith. Now leading
Line's a little tight.
Rohrbacher and Skebby 9-4 in the final
Whoa,
end.
whoa, 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 whoa.
So that tight matchup, not so tight
Get on the
anymore.
curl side.
And I
Just
see
get
a
ready.
pile of red rocks in the forefoot for Regan and Todd Burr here, too, on Cheap B closest to us.
Yeah, very
that turns
lonely
into.
yellow stone. Hamilton attempting the freeze and bumps off a little bit, but is shot rock.
Well, he freezes and freeze again, right?
I think, Nate, you probably see,
Maybe heavy, it's way easier for it to be worse. I think this way at least
listening
if I
to what
freeze
John says first.
or stay high side is better.
Okay.
I've thrown this shot enough,
Yeah.
and I know how to get there. It's like just outside of edge 8.
Yeah, the
I
innocent.
mean, edge 12 you can get there, but trying to be to it. Give it a little tap of loose.
They want to get to that stone. Nate, I think I'd want to bump that red just a little bit to try to move the back red back, so maybe there's a little bit of space
I
to
agree.
make that other yellow count if you can.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd end with everything back behind T-line there, but yeah, for John needing his 2, he might have to bring one of those into play here before long.
This is really curling hard. Needs to go to get by. Looks like it will get by. How much will it move these stones?
Good sweep for the skip.
Yeah, I don't know that they can make that yellow one count now. That red looks like it's locked into position. But they are sitting 1. Can squeeze in one more question here too. Tim Samonson. I believe he's joining us at House of Hearts for the first time this year, if I saw correctly in social media, so welcome, Tim. Asking about the pace being faster in mixed doubles than men's and women's. And do we enjoy the faster pace and think men's and women's need to go faster? I personally think the pace in the men's and women's is just fine as it is. The time to be able to talk about shots, I personally think is more interesting where you're listening into the players as opposed to flying around and having to play quicker. So if you enjoy the faster pace, you enjoy the mixed doubles format. I like the extra talk. I like the strategizing personally. See this in-turn freeze from Hamilton ends up being second count, and it's going to be difficult to move that rock too, but Schuster looking at maybe slashing into this pocket.
And they're both so fun to play for such different reasons too, with those pace difference and strategy and obviously different number of players and all those things that go into it. I love the doubles game and love the 4-person too. They're certainly different games though.
I mean, it does, but it doesn't. They gotta be like back line and get it just shy of nose.
Yeah, I like that.
Hearing back line from Schuster and just shy of nose.
So that was just about to suggest just high side on that yellow and just kind of jumble things around a little bit. Is looking pretty good for John.
Yeah, the key then with unlocking that red one is if you leave enough of that stone on the left side of the button under your own, you could slash it into the red pocket and lose both and possibly win the game, but you need to unlock the red that's from the overhead in the back fours.
Straight now, straight. Hard! Go!
This is really good looking right now. It doesn't quite leave the slash, but now it might play into the pocket. Timeout called by Matt and Becca. We'll see Coach Ann Swisshelm make her way out.
Oh, looks like
They
Matt
may
and
know
Becca
what
are
they
making
want to
their way-
play. Yeah.
Making their way down to her instead.
Let's see. I feel like I threw it the
Yeah, I think they've told Ann they know what they're playing. They're just stopping the clock.
And make sure, like,
Huh?
since I've been throwing that 4-0.
There may be a shot for
405.
the win right now where those rocks are angled, Nate. I think Matt and Becca need to take that shot away. This is likely just a guard, I would think. They could also draw into that pocket on that side, and it
Based
does
on the
appear
choice
that's
of
what
the
they're doing.
Intern, yeah. Must be
411.
trying to corner free something in there.
You have to curl it.
Feels like weight's close. Tough
So the
four.
best guard a lot of times, another counter.
Hurry!
That's what they're playing.
Hurry.
Matt trying to carry this down into the pocket.
Whoa!
Line looks pretty good. Needs to finish a little bit now.
Hurry!
Shot back.
Do they all go, Nate? We'll listen in and see what John thinks. I think they might.
I think they might as well.
They seem pretty sure right away, too.
The thicker you hit it, the bigger a chance.
Well, and in doubles with all these rocks piled around the 4-foot, they don't necessarily all have to leave play. They've just got to spread out enough to leave some yellow counters in there.
Yeah, I think 3/4 here. You need to hit a little on the outside to make sure that the red one on the top side of the 4-foot goes. Maybe even 4/5 because it's a little higher too. So
I think it's fairly
now you
comfortable
can't
there
get to
for
4/5
two.
obviously with that guard, but
It's certainly there for 2. It's just, is it ever there for 3?
it all depends on where that back red one goes in the back of the button on the right side.
You can also just throw a tap on the one I just threw with it softer, and as long as you catch, like here, come on, I'll show you.
They're maybe not sure they can hit enough of that stone.
Tap on this,
To get everything
and as long as
moving.
you
Yeah.
tap it anywhere high with enough to just move this off the 4-foot, we're getting 2. Like this is enough for 2 right here. You know what I'm saying? Like so, if you think you can't see enough of this to get
With peel.
with
probably
peel,
not.
I think we're still gonna come off this. It might go here, and this one probably doesn't leave any.
Right.
So maybe you're just
So I
playing
think
this
it's the
soft.
lighter weight.
Like you can play the same. This is the same
That
hack weight
same-
shot,
Yeah.
and you make it. You hit it with hack. We're getting 2.
It looks like they're just going to play for 2 now.
That come around halfway,
Maybe
probably
just
about
a
4.
hack, I believe they're calling. Tapping at an angle. Thinking that that yellow one will outcount the back red on the back of the 4-foot. If they could see a little bit more of that top yellow stone, they would play this with weight and try to get 3, but made just well enough by Becca that they don't believe the 3 is there. Final stone of this 8th end. Aileen Geving
Yep.
playing hack weight on a tap. Move that red stone a little bit.
Whoa!
Tapping her own yellow.
Whoa! Girl!
As good as you can do. We'll see if it's good enough. I think this.
Ooh, that's very close.
Well,
One
well
for
made.
sure. We'll find out. I think it's yellow. If they do end up measuring, nope, they're just calling it yellow. So I don't even get a chance to be right, but
Well, and
I would have been.
Ask and receive for the extra end.
What happens when there's none back there?
Yeah, I felt right away when I told you that we were locking an extra end into place. Now I didn't feel like leaving between draws anyways.
The everyday person may not aspire to be a professional athlete or an Olympic athlete. You may just want to be the best person you can be. You just may want to sleep better. You may want to feel better. Thorne has many products that can support all of those things. So it's not just about performing or running faster or jumping higher. It's those little things that go into having a higher quality of life.
Ask and ye shall receive. There is the 2-point end for Geving and Shuster to tie things up and send us to an extra end. Matt and Becca Hamlin will have hammer in this extra. Tyler George and Nate Perry on the call. Nate, you get the bonus time. You get extra time in the booth.
Free curling.
Starting out with this intern draw.
Line's good.
Aileen Geving.
Stay straight.
I'm trying to think if we've even had a tie game going to the 8th end in any of the feature games that we've had so far.
It feels like this is one of the closer draws across the board from watching and playing out there. I feel like there's been some early finishing games, at least 1 or 2 a draw for the most part, but these are all but one nail biters.
See head ice guy Sean Olison just scowling at this extra end. That's like a swear word to ice guys. Don't say extra end around the crew. A well-made shot there by Stormer to start this extra by Geving. Only twice this week I've done that so far, both in this game.
Vicky and Chris over on the far sheet there just spent a long time deciding what to throw and settled on a high guard, so they must be shot before Claire's hammer here.
Now that is the final stone of the 8th end on the way from Claire Moore's. Feel like they may be already sitting 1. Hard to tell. They are as far away from us as they can be. Ooh, Claire trying to play a little in-off chip. Not sure if it got there or not. They're shaking hands.
Must be 1 for yellow in that mess over there.
Shuster, meanwhile, playing the intern draw. Starting to take a turn now.
9.
Trying to get to the inside of that stone. Let's tap it to the back of the forefoot, so not a bad result.
Kind of wait.
Back 4, back 8.
It was indeed a steal of 1 for Persinger and Plies, and they do remain undefeated. A 7-5 victory over Claire Moores and Lance Wheeler in a hard-fought battle. Mess of stones in play on sheet B as well, with Burr and Burr and Fountain and Cott. The final end with a 7-4 lead for Burr squad.
Hard!
Becca trying to hold this one now, with Matt playing a bump, over curling a little bit. Pushes it behind the tee line, so all 5 rocks now behind the tee.
Gosh,
Nothing really close to the button.
it just jumped.
John's not upset about all this backing for a steal he needs to finish this one off.
I think we want this one to be touching just an inch of the forefoot above the tee line. I'm going to make one.
So I think John's saying he wants top button. Just being a little more precise than what I'm saying.
I didn't add as much, but it should be cool.
Feels
Close to
close.
the line, unfortunately.
6.
Where?
6.
Close.
Hearing 6 from Geving, meaning weights right about where they want. All on the sweeper now. Line's perfect.
It's all there on its own, I think, this
gliding a little bit and ends up going all the way to the backing. Is shot rock and locked into place.
What's that?
I said the game will be won in the 1 foot.
Yeah.
So we'll see what that means.
Matt throwing his second stone. Really would like to get to that spot on the button for a freeze. And Nate, a spot where they don't really want to unlock it now with those 2 stones behind it. If you're the one that's on the button.
Easy then. Easy then.
Right, and then we just picked up on John's mic. He
Hey,
said
go.
the game's going to be won or lost in the 1 foot here, meaning that
Hard.
button, it's that yellow rock
Hard.
he was not going anywhere. We left the pin open for
Hard,
for
Becca,
Matt
come on.
here.
Yeah, this looks like trouble right here, though.
A wick and left their own in that draw path. That's a pretty tricky spot to end up leaving.
Interesting spin back from that guard, or from Matt's shooter, to make that port a little smaller now, too. So now we'll see if Shuster can take advantage. Try to take that position. Almost looks like the outturn is a easier draw than the in-turn now.
Well, yeah, Ice is swinging plenty. They still won't come anywhere near that guard coming around it on the outturn side.
And they are playing the outturn. Right to the tee line
Yeah.
would be the
Feels good.
guess here.
7.
Oh, a lot of room.
Coming
Mine's
down.
getting better, though. It's all you now. Yeah. Whoa, wait on.
There it takes the turn just before that Columbia logo.
7.
Hard.
Trying to hold the line now as it's curling hard. That goes all the way across.
Into that port.
Yeah, that's right in that hole where
Thinking like hack.
Matt may be able to get both of these moving. This house could look drastically different after this shot if Matt's able to make this in-turn pass through the hole.
Needed to. Got to give Becca a chance on her last.
Yeah, whatever you see.
Board.
Okay.
Very important shot now. Matt Hamilton playing in-turn hit through this hole. Came out of his hand good.
Close. Close.
Seen plenty of Matt's throws. Can tell when it looks right coming
curl.
out.
Curl. Curl.
Good shot, Matt.
Gets him moving and it's very close for shot rock. Looks like yellow might still be count.
It's a good weight choice by Matt there, too. I was sort of envisioning that as a high, hard one, blow everything up, but he wanted to keep that shooter, and he did in a really good, useful spot.
But Julie,
You have a final on sheet B. Team Burr steals 3 more in the 8th for a 10-4 final.
What's that?
like, if it's better.
No. It's, I mean, yeah, it's better to get all the way across to it.
Okay.
If we're shot, that's not the rate. It's really close. I think it might be us, though. But yeah, just like right. Even if you're edge on edge, that hole is only a rock pick. You're gonna have to play the front.
Okay.
Which it could just go squeezing right through. If she hits onto the right, it could hit off our 2 yellows and go out the back. What's that?
So I believe they're trying to throw this to just about even up with that red stone, maybe an inch behind it
But then if I don't
to take away the tap.
She's just throwing that she draws the button.
right.
Thinking that then if they try to play the red in, that it'll kick off sideways and the back one may end up counting for the win on the back left side of the button on that overhead. So outturn draw right to the top of the button. Final stone of this game, we can
Got room. Got room.
assuredly say for Team Geving and Shuster.
Okay, line's good. Or you can curl it. Curl.
Trying to
Heard of a
get this to
blank
turn.
or two and then an extra for 4-person, but I don't know that you'll ever see one in mixed doubles.
That would be a first for me. Yeah, this one's still hanging. Didn't really turn over, and
Out their own.
looks like Matt and Becca will be playing the exact same shot that Geving and Shuster just attempted. That one just didn't turn over, kind of ran. think they kept expecting it to curl.
Just that 1 foot heavy, and it never quite nestled in there like they had pictured.
Unfortunately, I think if she taps it anywhere on the, like if she gets.
Yeah, even if it gets to nose, it's good enough, as the stone on the top of the 4 foot on the opposite side for red would count for 1. You really just need to either get to nose or inside with any kind of T plus weight. Can't see all of it, so it's not an automatic, but Nate, as you've seen, guard not really even that much in play for this shot. You can clear pretty easily and make it. So final stone on the way. Becca Hamilton.
It's more or less the pure draw she's thrown 100 times this week. Imagine she'll be close.
Looking very close here. Got to go now as it's turning over. Gets by and looks like a game winner to me. Well played by Becca. Extra point for good measure. And that is 2 for red. So our first extra end game of the week ends with Matt and Becca Hamilton securing the 8-6 victory over Geving and Shuster. And Nate, as we've seen a few different times for Matt and Becca, slow starters in these tournaments, but once they get things going, then they really get the motor revving. And they had a 6-point end when they were at a 1-2 record, and everything has been gravy for them since then. So maybe the sleeping giant.
If they right the ship, there's not many better once they're in that groove.
So Matt and Becca now getting their 3rd win. Aileen and John dropping to 3-2. We'll be back once again, 7:30 tonight. Our feature matchup, Corey Teesey and Corey Dropkin taking on Taylor Anderson and Ben Richardson. There are your updated standings. Persinger Plies still undefeated, 5-0. Geving Schuster, Hamilton, Rhymes Smith, all 3-2. Burr and Burr, Fountain Cott, Moores Wheeler, all 2-3 and still in this thing. Rohrbacher Skebby 0-5, and Pool B, TC Dropkin 4-0, Anderson Stapera 3-1, Strauss Casper 3-1, Anderson Richardson Nickel 2-2, Lookout Wiesa Podol and Perry 1-3, Delaney Ensign at 0-4.
Yeah, she's got a prettier autograph than me.
There is your upcoming feature matchup. Again, former teammates and current teammates taking on each other, as we've said so many times this week. That will be at 7:30 Eastern tonight, here back for that feature draw. Nate, thanks again for joining us. Good luck the rest of the competition. It's fun having you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always good to watch some good curling and fun to be in the booth.
And welcome to the Commentators Guild, I suppose. So for Tyler George and Nate Perry, signing off here on behalf of USA Curling Stadium. We will see you at 7:30 Eastern tonight for the next feature draw.